I was in the kitchen, wrist deep in flour, trying to get my famous sourdough starter to behave. It's a real finicky thing, a little like my son, Ryan, actually, when I heard it. A whisper, really. But the acoustics in this fancy-pants, open-concept living room are a real dime a dozen for eavesdropping. "Babe, just swipe Grammy Vivi's card. She's got a fat stack like over $150,000 chilling in her account. She won't even notice the dent for that Peloton." It was Ryan's voice. My heart, which usually runs steady like a Cadillac on a straight highway, suddenly felt like a runaway freight train crashing right into my ribs. The rolling pin clattered onto the granite countertop. The same countertop, mind you, that I scrub every single day until it shines like a mirror. My hands, covered in the remnants of a life spent cooking, cleaning, and caring, froze. $150,000. That wasn't just a fat stack. That was 45 years of working double shifts, of skipping the cute little floral dress I wanted, of saying no to every single vacation that wasn't to the local library. That was the security blanket I had, stitched together, dollar by dollar, for a quiet, dignified old age. It was my go-bag money. Then Tiff, my sweet Southern charmed daughter-in-law, chimed in. Her voice was pure sugar, but I swear it had more arsenic than a rattlesnake's bite. "Are you sure, sweetie? She's kinda tight with her dough. She won't have a total meltdown? Oh, I'm tight, am I?" I wanted to walk right out there and slap that grin right off her perfect Botoxed face. The woman burns through cash faster than a wildfire through dry kindling, all on Lululemon and those ridiculous oversized sunglasses. Vivi won't say squat. She's got it made in the shade here, Tiff. Free rent, free grub, free cable. It's the least she can do to help us keep up appearances. Besides, she's old school. What's she going to do with that kind of scratch anyway? We're the ones with the future, the goals. This house is our main squeeze, and frankly, we need that Peloton to stay on our A-game. Every word from my son, the boy I raised alone after his father ran off with his paralegal, was a tiny shard of glass digging into my soul. Free rent, free grub. I looked around the pristine designer kitchen. Did he really believe that? Let's break it down, honey. When Ryan and Tiff decided they needed this 4-bedroom McMansion, because a 2-bedroom condo was just too basic for their brand, they were short on the down payment. Short by about $60,000. Guess who sold her tiny paid-off bungalow, the one place I truly called mine, to cover the gap? Yours truly. $60,000, just poof, into their little dream. "It's not for free, Ryan," I whispered to the sourdough dough because I was too choked up to yell it out. I handed over my entire Social Security check every month. $500 every single time, straight into the house fund. That money was supposed to be my little treat. Maybe a new pair of sensible shoes, or a trip to see my sister in Arizona. Nope. It went to their high-speed internet, their premium channels, and the exorbitant water bill from Tiff's daily hour-long showers. And the labor? Oh, the labor. I cook every meal, clean every smudge, wash and iron their clothes until they're crisp enough to stand up on their own. I'm not a guest. I'm a full-time unpaid domestic worker. A maid with a twin bed in what used to be the utility closet. The sound of keys jingled, followed by the familiar, annoying click of Tiff's heels walking toward the garage door. I'm hitting. "The mall, Vivi! Need anything?" Tiff yelled, a forced sweetness in her voice that was as thin as tissue paper. It was the voice she used when Ryan was in earshot. Pretending we were besties, I swallowed the lump the size of a baseball in my throat. I couldn't face her. Not now. "No, dear. I'm good." "Thanks," I managed, my voice sounding a little too controlled, a little too steady for the volcanic eruption happening inside me. The garage door whirred open. The fancy German SUV roared to life, and the sound of my future, the money I had worked for since I was a mere 14-year-old kid, drove right out of the driveway. Gone to buy a Peloton, or maybe a fancy purse, or probably just some junk Tiff saw on Instagram. I slowly sank onto one of the tall bar stools by the island. I looked at my hands. 68 years old, and they looked every bit of it. wrinkles deep as canyons, age spots like little brown freckles from all those years under the scorching sun cleaning the windows of rich folks. I closed my eyes and took a deep, shaky breath. I remembered the first 10 grand. I was a waitress, pulling 12-hour shifts at a diner where the coffee was as strong as battery acid. I put $20 a week into a cookie jar. $20. I ate leftovers and wore the same 3 dresses for 2 years straight. That money was my escape fund. The next 30 grand came from the extra gigs, cleaning offices late at night, sewing curtains for neighbors. I was the old school kind of woman. You save, you don't spend. You make do. You look forward to the day you can finally put your feet up and say, I made it. And for what? To have my son, my only boy, my Ryan, hand over the fruits of my entire life's labor to his trophy wife like it was spare change? Like I was some out-of-touch relic who didn't deserve a damn thing? No, not this time. I wasn't going to cry. I was done crying in this house. The tears had run dry years ago when I realized that to them, I wasn't mom. I was an asset, a utility. Ryan walked in, his nose glued to his phone, looking all important in his business casual attire. He didn't even glance my way. Is lunch ready, Mom? Gotta be quick. Huge meeting with the brass at 2:30, he commanded, not asked. The tone was always the same lately. Hurry up, old woman, you're on the clock. Almost, I replied, standing up. My legs felt shaky, but my resolve was as solid as concrete. Oh, hey. Tiff went to the mall. Needed some stuff for the house, he mumbled, still scrolling. Just a heads up. I heard, I said. He finally looked up, a hint of annoyance flickering in his eyes. Word? Everything cool, Mom? You sound shady. I just kept kneading the dough. Harder. Like I was punching out all the frustration and rage that had been fermenting for years. Everything is just dandy, Ryan. Just a little elbow grease to get this bread perfect. He shrugged, poured a glass of bottled water, the bougie kind, of course, and walked out, already barking orders into his phone. The minute he was out of sight, I wiped my hands clean and went straight to my little pantry room. I locked the flimsy door, took out my ancient flip phone, the one they made fun of because it wasn't a smartphone, and dialed a number I had memorized long ago. National Bank. Good morning. You've reached Linda. How can I assist you today? Linda? Honey, listen close, I said, my voice steady, clear, and absolutely ice cold. My name is Vivian Sterling. I need you to immediately freeze my debit card. Every single one. No exceptions. And make sure no one can access my savings account. Like for real, freeze it. Protecting my money was the least I could do. The first step of my little journey. I hung up the phone with Linda from the bank, my hand still shaking a little, but not from fear. It was the adrenaline rush. A 68-year-old lady, who's been nothing but a doormat for 20 years, finally stood up for herself. It felt fire. I sat on the edge of that miserable twin bed Ryan had stuck me with. He said a queen wouldn't fit the aesthetic, and waited. I just knew, the explosion was coming. Tiff was probably at the checkout, all those pricey bougie things piled up, ready to ring through 80 grand worth of my hard-earned scratch. And now, nada. Linda had been a real doll. After verifying my identity and asking if the card was compromised, I just said, honey, let's just say it's on a little unauthorized field trip. She made the block instant. From now on, that piece of plastic was just a very expensive coaster. I glanced around my little cell, 10 by 10 feet of beige misery. This room used to be a pantry for crying out loud. The one saving grace was the small window overlooking the vegetable patch I planted. Even in here, I was still creating, still nurturing. But they didn't see that. They saw an old broad taking up space. My inner clock said it was about time for the main event. Tiff doesn't shop slow. She shops like it's a competitive sport. Sure enough, the silence was shattered by Ryan's phone ringing like a siren in the living room. His voice, initially calm, went from 0 to hella agitated in about 2 seconds flat. What do you mean? Blocked. That's whack. You must be running it wrong, Tiff. That card is loaded. My mom, she wouldn't even know how to block a card. She's still using a flip phone, for Pete's sake. I just sat there, quiet as a mouse, a small, grim smile playing on my lips. Oh, I know how, darling boy. I learned a thing or two while you were busy forgetting how to respect your mother. Then Ryan was at my door, knocking with the frantic urgency of a kid who just lost his favorite toy. Mom! Vivi, are you in there? Open up, I gotta talk to you, stat! I took a moment, adjusted the pillow on my bed, counted to 5. Then I opened the door. Ryan was standing there, phone in hand, his face already turning that shade of crimson he gets when his smooth, perfect world hits a snag. Mom, what's the deal? Tiff is at the checkout, totally totes embarrassed. The card got declined, said it's blocked. Did you actually block it? He tried to sound confused, but the accusation was ringing louder than a church bell. I looked him right in his eyes, those beautiful blue eyes that used to sparkle with adoration. Now, they were clouded with entitlement and impatience. For the first time in forever, I didn't flinch. Yes, Ryan, I blocked it, I said, my voice soft but firm. No yelling, just the plain cold truth. What in the holy heck, Mom? Why? She's buying stuff for the house. Furniture, a new TV for the den, the whole 9 yards. She's got $82,000 worth of things sitting there. They're calling the manager, Mom. This is a total fail. 82,000. That number hit me like a physical blow. $82,000. That was more than half of my entire savings. The amount I had scraped together from scrubbing toilets, sewing until my fingers bled, and walking miles to save bus fare. And Tiff was going to blow it on a single shopping trip for things they wanted, not things they needed. 82,000, Ryan? Did you say $82,000? And she didn't think to ask me? The owner of the account? That's not a few things for the house, son. That's a raid. It's for us, Mom. We're a family. You live here. It's normal to contribute to the big expenses, he pleaded, his voice rising. He was clearly desperate. Tiff was probably having a full-blown fit on the other end of the line. Contribute? I couldn't help but let out a dry, humorless chuckle. I hand you my entire monthly pension. Every single penny, $500, which you take without blinking. I cook, I clean, I do your laundry. I maintain this garden that you take all the credit for. I sold my forever home to give you the down payment on this monstrosity. And you think 82,000 of my savings is a fair contribution because I'm using your free electricity. I saw a flash of realization, then panic, cross his face. He knew I had heard their little conversation. His skin went a sickly gray color. Mom, I didn't mean it like that. I was just venting to Tiff. It was just trash talk, Mom. You know how it is. I know exactly how it is. Ryan, it is you and your wife treating me like a hired hand, like a burden, like an old woman who is too senile to notice you're stealing her future. You were more worried about Grace's embarrassment at the mall than the fact that you were authorizing grand larceny. He looked away, fiddling with his phone. The guilt was wrestling with his self-pity, and I knew which one would win. She's my wife. Mom, I have to have her back, he mumbled, defending his loyalty to Tiff. And I'm your mother, I countered, the simple statement hanging in the air, thick and heavy. Doesn't that count for anything anymore? Whose back are you supposed to have? He didn't answer. He just stood there, looking like a little boy who had been caught with his hand in the cookie jar. Except the cookie jar was my life savings. Just call the bank, Mom. Cut the drama. Unblock the card. We can talk about this later, I promise. Tiff is really upset, and you know how she gets. He went for the guilt trip, trying to use Tiff's meltdown as leverage. No, Ryan, I said again. That one little word, no. It tasted like freedom. Tell Tiff to come home. Tell her the shopping trip is over. And tell her I need to talk to you both. This isn't about the card anymore. This is about everything. His eyes widened in disbelief. He tried to argue again, but I didn't give him the chance. I took a step back and firmly closed the door of my little room. I heard the lock click. The sound was deafeningly final. I sat back down on my bed. Ryan knocked again, softly this time. Mom, please don't be this way. Don't be mad. Chill out. I ignored him. That little boy voice he was using, the one that used to make me melt and forgive every little childhood transgression, was just a trick now. A manipulative tool. It didn't work anymore. I heard his footsteps retreat, followed by a hushed, intense conversation on the phone with Tiff. Even muffled, I could hear her shriek on the other end. Your mother is a psycho. I'm standing here looking like a thief. I had to leave the cart. Everyone was staring. This is ridiculous, I smiled. It was the first genuine smile I'd worn in months. Good. Let her feel it. Let her feel that shame, that vulnerability. For years, she had made me feel small. Introduced me as the mom who helps us out. Or Ryan's mom. She lives in the pantry room. Always with that condescending air. She had made a show of my diminished status. Today, the roles were reversed. She was the one in the spotlight, and she was having a bad day. A very, very bad day. About 30 minutes later, I heard the car screech into the driveway. The car door slammed, hard enough to rattle the walls of my room. Tiff was home, and she was absolutely incensed. The clicking of her heels on the hardwood floor was a furious, rhythmic drumbeat, announcing the storm. Where is your mother, Ryan? I swear, if she thinks she can pull this crap with me. Ryan's voice was a low murmur, trying to calm her down, but she was having none of it. Calm. How can I be calm? That was $82,000 worth of stuff, Ryan. We needed those pieces. Now what? We look poor? We look like bozos who can't pay for their own stuff? She's got all that cash just sitting there doing nothing and she pulls this stunt? It's not fair. She lives here for free! There it is again. The mantra. I wasn't their mother. I was their wallet and a free utility. I took one last deep breath, feeling the cool air settle in my lungs. My decision was set. The card block was just the appetizer. The main course was coming. I stood up from my bed, unlocked the door, and walked out into the living room. Ryan and Tiff both froze, staring at me. Tiff was still gripping her empty designer shopping bags, her face a mask of red-hot fury. Vivian, Tiff spat out, correcting herself too late. We need to talk. Seriously. I simply walked over to the armchair, the oldest, least comfortable chair in the room, which they tacitly agreed was my spot, and sat down. I looked from Tiff's raging face to Ryan's nervous, shifty eyes. Yes, I replied, crossing my legs and folding my hands neatly in my lap. We certainly do, but I'll be doing most of the talking. You two have said quite enough already. And that, my darlings, was the moment they realized the old lady was no longer playing ball. I watched them both from my spot in the armchair, the designated old person chair. Tiff was still huffing, clutching those empty shopping bags like they were evidence of a crime, which, frankly, they were. Ryan was shifting his weight, the picture of nervous irritation. They were waiting for me to apologize, to cave, to play the sweet, easily manipulated old broad. They were in for a rude awakening. So, Vivian? Tiff started, her voice tight with fury. What gives? You just jacked up my whole day. I had to leave a cart full of necessities. Do you know how much that reflects on Ryan's professional image? We need those things to host his clients. I didn't blink. I just gave her the sweetest, most grandmotherly smile I could muster. Tiff, honey, why are you so upset about things you were going to buy with my money? If they are such necessities, why didn't you and Ryan use the money from your own accounts? Ryan jumped in, his tone sharp. Mom, don't play dumb. We told you. Our funds are tied up in the mortgage, the bills, the private school for little Mason. Ah, yes, I interrupted gently, cutting him off mid-sentence. The house, the bills, the things you claim I live off for free. Let's talk about the house, shall we? This lovely 4-bedroom, 3-bath piece of property you so proudly call yours alone. I leaned forward slightly, resting my elbows on my knees. When you bought this place, you needed $60,000 for the down payment. I sold my small 2-bedroom home, the home I owned free and clear, to give you that money. $60,000, that was my equity. My stake. Now, if memory serves, $60,000 bought a pretty substantial share of this property back in the day. Doesn't that mean I am in fact an investor? A part owner even? Not just some old broad squatting in your pantry? Ryan went pale again. He knew I was talking facts, not feelings. He hated facts when they challenged his narrative. That was a gift, Mom. A generous gift. You were moving in with us anyway, he stammered. A gift with strings, apparently. I shot back, keeping my voice even. The string being that I'm supposed to be your live-in maid, chef, and when you're strapped for cash, your personal ATM. Is that the fine print I missed when I signed the papers? Tiff was absolutely seething, her hands balled into fists. This is lame, Vivi. We're talking about a one-time thing for the house. It's our primary residence. What's your beef, really? You're old. You don't go anywhere. What do you need 150 grand for? You should be grateful we let you stay here and have this life. The word grateful landed like a nasty little spitball. This was the core of it, their staggering entitlement. I need that money, Tiffany, for the same reason you need your Peloton and your fancy bags, I said, looking her dead in the eye. For dignity. For the peace of mind that comes with knowing I won't be a charity case when my knees finally give out. And what I'm grateful for is finally realizing what a couple of users you both are. I straightened up in the chair. This was it. Time for the big reveal. The card is blocked, and it's staying blocked. Not just the debit card, Ryan. I went ahead and yanked all shared access to my savings, too. You see, I decided that my money, the money I earned from 40 years of hard, back-breaking labor, is no longer up for discussion. It's time for me to secure my future, because clearly, my own son and his wife won't. Ryan's jaw dropped. What? You cut us off? Are you serious, Mom? You can't do that. Oh, but I can, sweetie. I already did. And that, my dears, is only the beginning. I paused for dramatic effect. I had learned a thing or two about drama watching Tiff over the years. I'm not going to live here anymore. The silence in the room was so thick you could cut it with a knife. What are you talking about? Ryan whispered, completely thrown for a loop. I'm talking about moving out, I clarified. Remember that nest egg you were so keen on spending? I'm going to use a large chunk of it, my money, saved for this exact purpose, to buy a small condo. A place that's truly mine, a place where the rent is actually free, and no one can tell me I'm a burden. Tiff burst out laughing, a short, brittle, almost hysterical sound. You're tripping, Vivi. You can't live alone! Who's gonna cook? Who's going to clean? Who's gonna drive you to the doctor? You're too old. You need us. Oh, Tiff, bless your little heart, I said, shaking my head. That's exactly what I don't need. I need my freedom. And funny you should mention the cooking and cleaning. I stood up slowly, deliberately, and walked over to the whiteboard where I kept the weekly menu and the chore list. I picked up the eraser. As of right now, 1:45 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. My services as your unpaid cook, maid, launderer, gardener, and emergency childcare are terminated. I erased the entire board, Tuesday lasagna, laundry, ironing, garden watering, with a single, satisfying swipe. You're trippin', Mom, Ryan exclaimed, finally finding his voice, which was now laced with genuine fear, not just anger. Who's going to make dinner? I have that big meeting tomorrow. You, Ryan, or Tiff, or one of those takeout apps you love so much. The grocery run I was planning for tomorrow is canceled. The food in the fridge is yours now, and the dirty laundry basket in the hall is also your problem. Tiff's face twisted in horror. She wasn't worried about me. She was worried about her manicures. I don't cook, Vivi. You know that. My nails. Then you'll learn, dear. Or you'll starve. That's how adulting works, I responded coolly. I'm giving you both 48 hours to find a new arrangement. Because I'm calling a realtor this afternoon. I want out. Period. I turned to walk back to my room, but Ryan grabbed my arm. Mom, wait. We love you. We want you here. Don't be petty. You're family, he pleaded, the desperation finally hitting him. I gently pulled my arm away. Love, Ryan? Love doesn't come with a price tag of $82,000 and a daily chore list. You don't love me. You love what I do for you. And you love the idea of spending my money. Well, the bank is closed and the kitchen is shuttered. I went back to my room, locked the door, and pulled out my flip phone again. The realtor was next. I had to move fast before they decided to lock me in or start throwing fits that would compromise my peace. I looked at my tiny room. It had been my prison for too long. Soon it would just be a memory. A terrible, costly memory. The best part? I still had the rest of that $150,000. And I knew exactly how I was going to make my grand exit, and what a spectacular mess I was going to leave behind for them to clean up. The moment that little lock clicked on my bedroom door, the chaos outside began. It wasn't the kind of chaos that comes with tears and heartfelt apologies. It was the sheer, selfish panic of two grown people who suddenly realized their gravy train was derailing, and their free maid had quit on a Tuesday. I heard Tiff's shrieking voice first. Ryan, what are we going to eat tonight? I repeat, cannot live on takeout every night. It messes up my macros. And who is going to iron your shirts for the meeting? They have to be perfect. I don't know, Tiff. Chill out. We'll hire someone. We'll just get a cleaning service, Ryan yelled back, the sound of his fear making my skin crawl with a grim satisfaction. Hire someone? That costs serious scratch, Ryan. Where's that coming from? We were counting on Mom's money for the appliances. This is a total mess. I tuned them out. Their problems were no longer my problems. I was too busy making my future a reality. I pulled out my little flip phone again and dialed the number of the realtor I'd secretly found months ago. A sharp, no-nonsense lady named Brenda. Brenda, honey, it's Vivi Sterling. I'm ready to move. Like, right now ready. I need you to get me into that small condo by the park. The one on the ground floor with the little porch. I have the cash. Let's make this thing happen, pronto. Brenda was a pro. Within the hour, she had faxed over the initial purchase agreement to a local copy shop. I had to be careful. I couldn't use Ryan's printer. And I snuck out of the house while they were busy fighting about who was going to clean the bathroom. Walking out that door felt like shedding a coat made of lead. I was practically floating on air, even in my sensible walking shoes. I met Brenda, signed the papers, and arranged for the full cash payment transfer, the remaining balance of my savings, to be initiated the next morning. My money was going from Ryan's reach to my own deed. The closing would be in a week, and I had already arranged for a moving pod to be dropped off Friday morning. I told Brenda to list the pickup address as my old friend's house, just in case Ryan or Tiff got snoopy. When I got back, the kitchen was still a battlefield. Ryan was trying very poorly to assemble a salad, and Tiff was staring at the dishwasher like it was a complex piece of alien technology. Mom, where were you? Ryan demanded, his voice accusatory. Out, dear. Running some errands. You know, securing my future. Did you get your own lunch figured out? I asked, walking past him and straight into my room, a bag with the signed papers tucked firmly under my arm. The next few days were a blur of delicious revenge. I maintained a monastic silence. I used my room and only my room. I stopped doing the absolute minimum. No more clean towels. No more fresh coffee at 6 a.m. No more warm dinner waiting on the stove. The house quickly devolved into a state of pandemonium. Ryan's perfectly starched work shirts went from crisp to wrinkled messes. He had to wear an okay shirt to his big meeting and came back looking furious. They noticed Mom. They noticed my shirt wasn't properly ironed. It reflects so poorly, he whined. Maybe if you made time between your important calls, you could learn how to use an iron, Ryan, I suggested sweetly, folding my own small pile of clean socks. Tiff was an absolute train wreck. Her designer clothes were piling up in the laundry room. She refused to use the washer, claiming it was too harsh on her cashmere. She was surviving on protein bars and cold coffee. Her carefully constructed image was cracking under the weight of basic domestic upkeep. This is not living, Vivi. This is camping. You have to help us. For Mason's sake. He needs a hot meal. Tiff tried to pull the grandson card, but I was ready for her. Mason is 7, Tiff. He's perfectly capable of eating the cereal you bought. And remember that whole we live here for free thing? Well, I'm out of here soon, and when I'm gone, you'll need to learn how to keep this ship afloat yourself, honey. The next week passed slowly for them, quickly for me. The closing date was set. I had my keys, and the moving pod was scheduled. I had barely 4 boxes of belongings, a few favorite photos, my grandmother's china cup, a stack of old books, and my important papers. Everything else was either worn out or replaceable. My real wealth wasn't in stuff. It was in the bank account, and the impending freedom. On Thursday evening, I decided to drop the final bomb, the one they hadn't seen coming. I called them into the living room, setting a timer on my flip phone for a 10-minute meeting. They sat on the sofa, looking miserable and exhausted. Ryan's eyes had bags under them, and Tiff's makeup was chipped. They looked less like the glamorous couple running the world, and more like 2 teenagers who had just realized Mom and Dad left them alone with no credit card. Okay, I began. The condo purchase is finalized. I close tomorrow. I'm moving out Friday morning. See, Ryan? She's serious, Tiff hissed at him. But wait, Mom, you sold your old house, remember? $60,000 of our down payment came from you. You have a stake in this house, Ryan argued, trying to find a legal loophole to keep me around, or at least keep the money. That's a very good point, Ryan, I said, nodding slowly. And you are absolutely correct. I have a $60,000 stake in this property. I've been doing some math, and I think it's time you paid me back for my investment. What? They both yelled in unison. I need my $60,000 back, Ryan, I stated plainly, since I will no longer be living here or providing all the services you so desperately need. I need my equity back to furnish my new place. Consider it an investment buyout. Ryan started sputtering. We don't have that kind of money. We're cash poor, Mom. We just bought the house. We pay huge bills. I leaned forward, my gaze piercing. Then you need to find it, Ryan. You have 30 days. Otherwise, I will be forced to file a legal claim for my equity, which will put a very large public lien on your beautiful high-status house. I checked my phone. The timer was up. Our time is done. I'm going to pack my last box. I suggest you both figure out how to sell some of those luxury handbags, or maybe return that Peloton if you want to keep the house above board. As I stood up, Tiff finally broke. She didn't cry. She raged. You're an old battle axe. You're trying to ruin us. After everything we've done for you. I paused at my door. Honey, you didn't do a thing for me. You did things to me. And now, I'm simply making things even, Steven. I locked my door one last time. The revenge was sweet, but the real final blow was still waiting in the wings. I had one more thing to do before I left this house forever. That last night in their palace, which was now starting to look more like a glorified frat house thanks to the rapid decline in cleanliness, was deliciously quiet. I stayed locked in my room, not because I was scared, but because I was dialed in. My condo closing was done, the deed was recorded, and the cash was gone from the bank, safely tucked into my new property. I was untouchable. I could hear Ryan and Tiff bickering in the living room. It was less about me and more about the existential dread of them. Did you call the dry cleaners? My suit for the golf tournament is still in the hamper, Ryan. It smells funky. Tiff whined. I can't, Tiff. I'm trying to figure out how to pull 60 grand out of thin air. My firm doesn't just hand out bonuses. We might have to sell your Rolex, Ryan retorted, sounding on the verge of tears. My Rolex? Are you kidding me? That's an investment piece. Oh, honey, that's the least of your worries. I spent the evening packing my last personal items. My old school photo albums, a collection of sewing notions, and my grandmother's china cup. The one thing of real sentimental value. I packed them all into 2 small boxes. I didn't need much. All those years of saving meant I could start fresh, light, and unburdened. The rest of the stuff in my room, the threadbare towels, the cheap lampshade, the lumpy mattress Ryan had deemed good enough. It all belonged to them. The final phase of my plan was about to go live. Early Friday morning, the moving pod arrived exactly as planned. Ryan and Tiff were both still passed out, Tiff in a state of exhaustion from stress, and Ryan probably from stress drinking. I was wide awake, sipping a cup of instant coffee I had brewed on my tiny little hot plate. A tiny piece of rebellion I had kept hidden. I walked out to the kitchen, where the sink was piled high with 3 days' worth of dishes, and the smell was getting downright gross. Before the moving crew showed up, I had one last crucial task. I opened the refrigerator. It was still packed with the high-end, organic, gluten-free everything groceries I had bought and cooked with for them. Gourmet cheese, imported vegetables, expensive cuts of meat for Ryan's protein diet. All the stuff that costs a fortune and that they would never bother to cook. I grabbed 2 large garbage bags. I opened the pantry. I swept every single spice, every box of premium pasta, every imported jar of fancy sauce into the bags. Then I moved to the fridge. The organic milk, the artisanal bread, the free-range eggs, the entire produce drawer. Gone. I left them with 1 loaf of the cheap white sandwich bread they bought for Mason's school lunches, and a half-gallon of expired 2% milk. Why? Because they needed to understand the true cost of my free labor, the time, the effort, and the hard cash I poured into their comfort. They'd never look at an empty shelf the same way again. I tied the garbage bags tightly and hauled them out to the curb. Not the general trash, mind you. I set them neatly next to the large donation bin for the local food bank. Someone who actually needed this food would get it. When the 2 nice young men from the moving company, Marco and Jose, showed up, I was waiting with my 2 boxes and that little china cup. "Morning, ma'am." "Ready to roll?" Marco asked, looking slightly confused by the sight of 2 boxes and a house that looked like a disaster zone. "Ready. Set, go, boys," I confirmed. As they loaded my meager belongings, Ryan finally stumbled out of his room looking disheveled and annoyed. "Mom, what is all this? Who are these guys?" he mumbled, rubbing his eyes. "These are movers, Ryan. I told you. I'm moving out," I said cheerfully. He looked around, finally taking in the empty kitchen counters and the rapidly emptying front porch. He was still too groggy to process the sheer audacity of it all. But what about the house? What about the equity? 30 days, Ryan. That's your deadline. "Don't be late," I reminded him, grabbing the little china cup and tucking it securely into my purse. The final, beautiful moment came when Marco and Jose were gone. The pod was sealed, and the house was silent. I stood at the front door, looking at my son and the wreckage of his comfortable life. "I need one more thing before I go," I announced. "What now, Mom? What more could you possibly want?" Ryan asked, his voice cracking with fatigue and anger. I reached down and grabbed the key to the front door, the one I had used dutifully for 20 years. I held it out to him. "This key," I said. "You claimed I was living here for free. Well, this key represents my obligation to cook, clean, and care for this house and everyone in it. Since that obligation is now gone, I no longer need the key." I dropped it right into his outstretched hand. The metal was cold. "And one more thing," I added, turning to face them both one last time. "That 6-burner Viking stove in the kitchen? That was my mother's inheritance money. She wanted me to have a nice kitchen when I retired. I paid for that stove in cash when you built this house. Since I won't be using it, and you two don't even know how to boil water, I've already arranged for a buyer to pick it up later today. They're dropping off a small, functional electric range that fits your low-maintenance lifestyle. Don't worry, the check for the Viking will go straight into my account." Tiff let out a gasp that was equal parts shock and rage. "You're selling the stove? Are you out of your mind?" "Nope," I replied, opening the front door and walking out into the bright, sunny morning. "Just getting my last bit of equity. Ciao, kiddos." I got into the waiting car, a nice prepaid Uber I had called myself, and didn't look back. As the car pulled away, I heard Tiff's furious scream from the house, the sound of her realization that her image was about to crumble along with their budget. I was free, and I was fixin' to enjoy it. My new condo was exactly what I had always dreamed of. Small, sunny, and most importantly, mine. No one here was telling me I was taking up too much space or using too much hot water. My 2 small boxes were unpacked in under an hour, the little china cup sitting proudly on my kitchen counter. The air smelled of clean linen and possibility, not 3-day-old dirty laundry and Tiff's overpriced perfume. I was blessed. I had even managed to find a charming little secondhand store to buy a cute little bistro set for my sunny patio. It was pennies compared to what those kids were trying to spend. That afternoon, I got a text from Brenda, the realtor. She confirmed that the buyer for the Viking stove had picked it up. She'd handled the transaction perfectly, and the money, a handsome $9,000, was already wired directly into my account. Ryan and Tiff were now the proud owners of a tiny, used electric range that couldn't even boil water evenly, which I figured was about all they'd need. I spent my first week in my new place doing absolutely nothing but reading, gardening on my small porch and cooking simple, delicious meals for myself. No deadlines, no demands, just peace. It was the bomb. The calls and texts started immediately. They were frantic, desperate, and completely self-serving. Ryan, text, 2 days after I moved. "Mom, this is crazy. The house is a total dump. Tiff is having a breakdown. We need you to come back and help us get set up. Mason misses your lasagna." My reply, via Linda, the bank manager, who was in on my joke. "New number, who dis?" Okay, I didn't actually send that, but I sure thought about it. My actual reply, "Ryan, I am busy. Did you make arrangements for the $60,000 equity payment?" Tiff, voicemail, 5 days after I moved. "Vivi, you have to come back. We can't find the good cleaning supplies. Everything smells." Ryan tried to iron his pants and burned a hole right through the fancy new ones. "You're ruining his career." I just deleted it. Their problems were just static now. They had 30 days. Around day 25, the real panic set in. I got a desperate call from Ryan. "Mom, please. We're dead serious. We can't get the money. We tried for a home equity loan, but the bank flagged us because of the debt-to-income ratio. We can't pay you back and you can't put a lien on our house. Our image, Mom. I told you, Ryan, 30 days, I stated calmly. You should have kept better track of the money I spent 60 years saving. But Mom, we'll lose the house. We'll be ruined. Honey, I sighed, genuinely sorry for the loss of their comfortable illusion, but not for the lesson. That house was never really yours alone, was it? It was always half mine. You just forgot to include me in the benefits. You have until the end of the month. After that, my lawyer, yes, I have one now, a sharp little cookie named Miss Chen, will file the paperwork. Then came the final, devastating blow, the ultimate twist of the knife, the real mic drop of my revenge. I waited until the very last day of the month. That evening, I called Ryan. Ryan, you sound tired. Have you figured out the money situation? He sounded defeated. No, Mom. We had to empty Tiff's retirement savings. It's not enough. We're about $15,000 short. Please, Mom, just forgive the rest. We'll pay you back later, I promise. We'll be good. No need, son, I said, a soft, almost pitying tone in my voice. I didn't call to ask for the money. Then what, Mom? You're letting us off the hook? Thank you. Thank you, he babbled, relief flooding his voice. Not exactly. I called to tell you that I've decided to sell the equity to someone else. What? Who would buy a piece of the down payment? A local charity, Ryan. Specifically, the Elder Dignity Fund that helps seniors buy housing and avoid family abuse. I've signed over the right to collect that $60,000 to them. They'll handle the lien. They're a nonprofit, Ryan. They don't have to worry about their credit score or professional image. They are simply dedicated to protecting the rights of seniors. They are relentless. The phone went silent. The silence was perfect. It was the sound of a man realizing he had just messed with the wrong dolly. Mom, you gave it to a charity? They'll sue us! They won't stop! That's right, Ryan, and they'll do it with more zeal than I ever could. You see, I finally realized that my purpose wasn't to be your maid or your bank. It was to use my hard-won cash to send a message. You thought I was old and weak, but I was just fixing to teach you a lesson in respect. The money you tried to steal will now go to save another old woman from becoming someone else's burden. That, my dear boy, is what a real investment looks like. I hung up the phone. I didn't wait for his reply, his protest, or his manufactured apology. I never heard from them again about the money. I later heard, through a mutual acquaintance, that Ryan and Tiff had been forced to sell the house within months to avoid the lawsuit, losing most of their savings in the process. Their brand was ruined. Tiff had to get a real job, and Ryan had to take a pay cut just to find a smaller, less bougie place to live. As for me, I was all good. I was Vivi Sterling, apartment owner, patio gardener, and master of my own universe. I finally had the peaceful, dignified retirement I had worked for. And every time I sipped my morning coffee from my grandmother's china cup on my sunny porch, I remembered Ryan's horrified silence. Sweet liberty indeed.